Right now, someone is watching your every move. They are studying your choices, analyzing your reactions, waiting for you to stumble. But here's the twist. It's not who you think. It's not your critics. It's not your so-called friends. It's not even strangers on the internet. The one watching you most closely is you. Every morning you step into a performance you never auditioned for. You live as though there's an invisible audience seated in a grand theater, and you're the unwilling actor trapped under the spotlight. You check your phone before you've even taken your first breath of fresh air, scrolling through curated lives that make you question your own. You post, you reply, you explain yourself to people who would never stop to help you if they saw you struggling in the street. And as the applause never comes, you keep dancing anyway. Here's what nobody tells you about modern life. We have turned our existence into a 24/7 performance where the audience isn't even paying attention. You're constantly editing your identity, polishing your image, and tailoring your choices to gain the approval of people who forgot your name 5 minutes after meeting you. And in this endless theater, something essential has been stolen from you. Yourself. Think about it. How often do you catch yourself rehearsing conversations that will never happen? How many times have you delayed bold decisions because of the fear of judgment? How many hours of your life have been wasted defending yourself to people who have no stake in your destiny? We've become prisoners of invisible audiences, slaves to opinions that don't matter, actors in performances no one asked us to give. And yet, behind all this noise, there's a voice. It's faint, almost drowned out by the chaos, but it's there. It's your authentic self, calling you back to center. That voice doesn't demand applause. It doesn't seek validation. It whispers a simple truth. Your power multiplies in silence. The ancient Stoics knew this secret. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, could have commanded the attention of millions. Yet he chose to pour his deepest thoughts into a private journal, never intended for publication. Seneca, one of Rome's wealthiest men, practiced voluntary poverty and silence so he could detach from society's illusions. Epictetus, who rose from slavery to become one of history's greatest teachers, built his entire philosophy on one principle: control what you can control and ignore everything else. These men weren't hermits hiding from life. They weren't weak men running from responsibility. They stood at the very peak of influence, and yet they turned inward. They understood something we've forgotten, that silence is not weakness. Silence is strength. Silence is focus. Silence is the weapon that transforms chaos into clarity. Today we face a world even noisier than theirs. The noise is everywhere, in your phone, in your workplace, in your relationships, in your own mind. And most people will never escape it. They'll keep dancing for the invisible crowd until their last breath. But you don't have to. There is another way. What if you could shut out the endless commentary? What if you could stop living like a puppet for invisible strings? What if you could walk into any room, any situation, with the calm of a mountain unmoved by the storm? That's not a fantasy. It's what the Stoics practiced every single day. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you today. 7 ancient rules, 7 steps that, if followed in sequence, will unlock a kind of inner power most people never touch in their lifetime. These rules aren't about becoming antisocial. They're about becoming unshakable. They will not only change how others see you, but more importantly, how you see yourself. But here's the challenge. Most people will hear these rules, nod their heads, maybe even take notes, and then return to the same cycle of validation and distraction. They'll miss the transformation because they refuse to act. The difference between them and you comes down to a single choice. Will you just consume this knowledge, or will you live it? If you're still listening right now, I believe you're different. You're here because something deep inside you knows the truth. That the way you've been living is not sustainable. That chasing approval has drained you. That constant noise has deafened you. That living as a prisoner to invisible audiences has robbed you of your true power. You've been waiting for a turning point, and this is it. So stay with me until the end, because these 7 rules, if followed in sequence, can completely change your life. They will give you the tools to reclaim your focus, protect your energy, and write the comeback story you've been too distracted to begin. And if you feel this message in your soul, if you're tired of living for everyone except yourself, then don't just listen, Commit. Say it out loud. Write it in the comments. Claim it as your declaration. I choose silence over noise. This is more than a video. It's the beginning of your transformation. And if you're ready to walk this path with us, join our community here on True Stoic Way, where warriors like you are learning to master themselves in a world that has lost its way. Because once you master silence, you won't just change how the world sees you. You'll become someone even you didn't know you could be. Rule 1. Starve the noise. Picture this. The alarm goes off, your eyes barely open, and your hand instinctively reaches for the glowing rectangle on your nightstand. Before you've even stood up, you're already scrolling. Notifications flood your screen. Messages, news updates, social media posts, endless pings pulling at your attention. And just like that, before your feet have touched the ground, you've surrendered your mind to chaos. Sound familiar? Of course it does. Because for most people, this has become the ritual of modern life. We don't wake up anymore. We plug in. We don't begin our day with clarity. We begin with noise. And this isn't harmless. This is poison disguised as connection. It's a subtle but powerful hijacking of your focus, your mood, and even your sense of self. This constant pull, this flood of opinions, judgments, and comparisons, it's what I call the monster of noise. This monster lives in your phone, in the headlines, in other people's endless commentaries about your life. It grows stronger the more attention you feed it, and it thrives on your reactions. Every time you compare yourself to someone's highlight reel, the monster grows. Every time you obsess over a critical remark, the monster grows. Every time you let a stranger's drama become your mental burden, the monster grows. And make no mistake, it is running your life. That subtle feeling of unease you carry, that invisible weight pressing down on your shoulders, it comes from feeding the monster of noise. The Stoics saw this danger centuries ago, even without smartphones and social media. Epictetus, a man who rose from slavery to become one of the greatest philosophers in history, offered a truth that slices through our illusions. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. At first glance, this might sound like a statement about money, but it isn't. Epictetus was talking about mental wealth. He was teaching that freedom comes not from collecting more, but from desiring less, from being selective about what you let into your mind. If your attention is scattered across everyone else's problems, everyone else's opinions, everyone else's expectations, then you own nothing, not even yourself. The Stoics understood that your thoughts are your most precious possession. And just like a fortress guards its gates, they guarded their attention. They knew that whoever controls your mind controls your life. So how do we fight back? How do we starve the monster of noise until it no longer dictates our every thought? The answer is not complicated. It doesn't require an app or a gadget. It requires discipline. It requires creating sacred boundaries where your mind belongs only to you. Here are 3 powerful practices the Stoics would recognize instantly. 1. The sacred morning hour. The first 60 minutes of your day must belong to you and you alone. No phone, no news, no emails, no other people's energy invading your space. This is the time to set your intentions, to listen to your own thoughts, to breathe before the world starts demanding pieces of you. Imagine starting your day with stillness, reading something nourishing, journaling, practicing gratitude, or simply sitting in silence. The world will still be there in an hour, but by protecting this sacred time, you've already won the day. 2. Opinion fasting. Not every comment deserves a response. Not every piece of advice deserves your consideration. Not every opinion deserves space in your mind. Think of unsolicited opinions like water passing through a screen. You don't try to block each drop. You just let it flow through without clinging to it. Smile, nod, and let it go. You are not obligated to absorb every judgment thrown at you. Most of the people giving opinions about your life aren't paying your bills, aren't walking in your shoes, and aren't sharing your bed. Why should their voices matter more than your own? 3. Defend nothing. This is perhaps the hardest, but it's the most liberating. Stop defending your choices to people who don't matter. You don't owe strangers, acquaintances, or critics an explanation for how you choose to live. The day you stop justifying yourself is the day you start living for yourself. Your life is not a courtroom, and you are not on trial. When you carry this mindset, a beautiful thing happens. Your decisions become lighter, your path becomes clearer, and you reclaim the energy you once wasted explaining yourself to people who weren't listening anyway. When you begin to practice these 3 principles, something magical happens. The monster of noise begins to starve. Its grip weakens. And in the silence it leaves behind, you'll hear something you may not have heard in a long time. Your own voice. You'll remember what you actually want, instead of what the world has told you to want. Your own thoughts will become more interesting than other people's drama. You'll stop bouncing like a ping-pong ball between the moods of others. You'll become unshakable, not because you've built walls of stone, but because you're rooted in your own truth. Take a moment right now and identify one source of noise in your life. Maybe it's that news app that sends you constant notifications of disasters you can't control. Maybe it's that social media account that leaves you feeling inadequate. Maybe it's that person who always has something negative to say about your decisions. Cut it off. Starve it of your attention. Watch how much mental space you suddenly reclaim for things that actually matter. Your peace, your growth, your authentic life. Starving the noise isn't about isolation. It's not about withdrawing from the world. It's about choosing what enters the fortress of your mind. The Stoics didn't run away from society. They lived and thrived in it, but they lived on their own terms. And here's the deeper truth. When you starve the noise, you don't just hear your own voice, you start trusting it. That inner whisper that you've ignored for years will grow louder. It will guide you toward choices that align with your true self. It will remind you that your worth was never meant to be measured by likes, by headlines, or by the shifting opinions of others. So, here is your challenge. For the next 7 days, protect the first hour of your morning. Fast from opinions that drain you. Defend nothing to anyone who doesn't matter. This is not a suggestion, it's a test. Because the moment you choose silence over noise is the moment your transformation begins. And if you're ready to silence the noise and hear your own voice again, let me know in the comments. Say, I choose silence over noise. This is the true Stoic way. Rule 2. Move like nobody's watching. How many decisions have you killed just because of imaginary judges in your head? How many times have you stopped yourself from speaking up, from trying something new, from pursuing a dream? Not because you couldn't do it, but because you feared what people might think. We live our lives as if we're under constant surveillance, as if every step we take is being measured, graded, and discussed by a jury of critics. But here's the reality check. Most of those judges don't even exist. And the few who do? They're too busy managing their own insecurities to pay much attention to yours. This is the tragedy of modern life. We live as though we're the star of everyone else's movie, but the truth is, in most people's daily thoughts, we're barely a background character. They're not tracking your every move. They're thinking about themselves, their own worries, their own struggles, their own mistakes. The real problem isn't their judgment, it's yours. Because over time, you've absorbed so many voices, so many expectations, so many shoulds, that you've become your own harshest critic. You're the prison guard and the prisoner at the same time. You don't need an external audience to stop you. You've already built an audience of doubt inside your own mind. The Stoics knew this. Seneca, the great Roman philosopher and advisor to emperors, once said, "Every new beginning comes from another beginning's end." But here's the catch. Most people never reach that new beginning. Why? Because they're too afraid to end the performance they've been staging for everyone else. They can't step into authenticity because they're terrified of disappointing the invisible crowd in their heads. But authenticity, the courage to act from your center rather than from fear, is what the Stoics called authentic action. And it is the doorway to freedom. So how do you break free from the invisible judges? How do you silence the endless "what will people think" that paralyzes your boldest impulses? Here are 3 practices to start today. 1. Reality check practice. The next time that voice whispers, "What will people think?" stop and ask yourself, which specific people? Whose opinion actually matters here, and why should it outweigh my own authenticity? 9 times out of 10, you won't even be able to name anyone. You'll realize you've been paralyzed by shadows, haunted by ghosts of judgment that don't exist. And on the rare occasion you can name someone, ask yourself another question. Does this person live my life? Do they carry my responsibilities? Will they bear the consequences of my choices? If the answer is no, then why give them so much power? 2. The authentic action test. Before making a decision, pause and ask, am I doing this from my center? Or am I doing this to manage someone else's reaction? If your choice is based on fear of judgment, you're not living authentically. You're living as a puppet. But if your choice aligns with your values, your desires, your truth, then you're stepping into your real self. 3. Start small, build courage. Courage is like a muscle. You strengthen it through repetition. Don't wait for a massive leap to prove your authenticity. Start with small acts. Wear that outfit that makes you feel confident, even if it's outside your usual style. Speak up in a meeting instead of staying silent. Take the class you've been considering for months. Post that piece of art, that writing, that idea. Not for validation, but because it reflects who you are. Each small act of authenticity builds your courage for bigger moves. And here's the paradox. When you stop performing and start living from your center, people notice. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because authenticity is magnetic. It cuts through the noise of pretense and gives others permission to be authentic too. This is how you shift the entire atmosphere around you. Instead of being another person trapped in the exhausting cycle of appearances, you become a spark of freedom. People start to see you not as someone who bends to every expectation, but as someone unshakably rooted in their own truth. And that is inspiring. But remember, some will resist. When you act authentically, not everyone will applaud. Some will be uncomfortable because your courage exposes their conformity. That's okay. Their discomfort is their work, not your responsibility. Your role is not to manage other people's reactions. It's to live your life with integrity. Imagine reaching the end of your days and realizing you never really lived, only performed. That's the real tragedy. The applause you were waiting for never came, and the audience you were performing for was never really watching. The Stoics remind us, the most tragic waste is to live as if your life belongs to others. It doesn't. It belongs to you. So today, begin reclaiming it. Break free from the invisible judges. Take the small authentic step you've been avoiding, and as you do, declare your independence from the prison of other people's expectations. If you're ready to step into authenticity, declare it below. I live my life from my authentic center. And subscribe for more daily Stoic insights here on True Stoic Way, where we are building a community of warriors who are done with pretending, done with performing, and ready to live with courage and truth. Because when you move like nobody's watching, that's when the world finally begins to see who you really are. Rule 3. Keep your energy expensive. Imagine this. Every morning, you wake up with $100 in your pocket. Not real money, but energy. Mental energy, emotional energy, physical energy. That's your daily budget. The critical question is, how are you spending it? Do you invest it wisely, directing it toward people and activities that multiply your growth, your peace, your purpose? Or do you let it slip away, dollar by dollar, on distractions that leave you drained, anxious, and empty? Most people never stop to ask this question. They wake up, and before they've even had breakfast, they've already spent half their budget on things that don't matter, worrying about problems they can't solve, engaging in arguments online that lead nowhere, scrolling endlessly through other people's curated lives, entertaining conversations with people who only take and never give. These are what I call energy leaks. They're the slow, invisible drains on your vitality. Drama, getting pulled into conflicts that aren't even yours to carry. Complaints, listening to endless negativity that offers no solutions. Doom scrolling, feeding your mind content designed to make you feel inadequate. Empty commitments, saying yes out of guilt or obligation instead of genuine intention. Each leak may seem small, but together, they rob you of your strength. And by the time you reach the end of the day, you're exhausted, not from purposeful living, but from wasting your energy on things that didn't deserve it. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, a man responsible for ruling an empire, wrote in his private reflections, "Confine yourself to the present. Not because the past and future don't matter, but because scattering your energy across time, space, and other people's problems dilutes your power." He knew that energy management is life management, that if you guard your focus as your most precious resource, you can stand firm even when the world tries to pull you in 100 directions. So how do we keep our energy expensive? How do we ensure that our daily $100 doesn't disappear into the cracks of distraction and chaos? Here are 4 Stoic-inspired strategies to put into practice. 1. The clear no. Most people are afraid of this word. They sugarcoat it, they over-explain it, they apologize for it, but a diluted no is just another yes in disguise. The clear no is direct, unapologetic, and liberating. No, I can't take on that project right now. No, I won't attend that event. No, I don't want to discuss that topic. That's it. Period. No explanation needed. Every time you give a clear no, you reclaim energy that would have been spent on things that don't align with your path. 2. The value filter. Before you commit to something, ask yourself, will this add genuine value to my life or the lives of those I care about? If the answer isn't a clear yes, it's a no. Too often, we commit our energy to things that sound good in the moment, but add no real value. The value filter ensures that your energy goes where it matters most. 3. The motivation check. Be brutally honest with yourself. Am I doing this out of fear, guilt, or obligation, or from genuine interest and alignment with my values? If fear or guilt is your driver, the task will drain you. If genuine interest and alignment are your drivers, the task will energize you. The Stoics remind us that our actions should come from reason and principle, not compulsion. 4. The opportunity cost. Question: every yes is also a no to something else. Ask, is this the best use of my energy right now, or am I just filling time? This one question can transform how you live, because when you measure your commitments against the cost of your finite energy, you begin to make choices that serve your highest priorities instead of everyone else's. When you start applying these strategies, something powerful shifts. People begin to respect your energy more because you respect it. Your availability becomes valuable because it's no longer unlimited. Your presence becomes meaningful because you're no longer half engaged in 10 things. You're fully engaged in the few that matter. Think about the people who make you feel truly heard, truly seen. They're not the ones who say yes to everyone. They're the ones who have learned to guard their energy. That's why they can give their full attention to you when they choose to. This is not selfishness. This is wisdom. Because you cannot pour from an empty cup. To give generously where it matters, you must first conserve what is yours. When you treat your energy as precious, you ensure that your family, your purpose, your growth, receive the best of you, not the leftovers. You stop scattering yourself across trivialities and start investing yourself in transformations. So here's your challenge. Identify one area of your life where you've been spending energy too cheaply. Maybe it's a toxic group chat. Maybe it's a friend who calls to complain but never listens. Maybe it's the habit of scrolling when you already feel low. Cut it off today. Reclaim that energy. Redirect it towards something that actually strengthens you. Because when you keep your energy expensive, you elevate not just yourself, but everyone who depends on you. You show up as the strongest version of who you are meant to be. And if you're ready to make that commitment, type it in the comments right now. My energy is precious and I invest it wisely. Join the Stoic community here on True Stoic Way, where warriors like you are learning to guard their energy, protect their peace, and focus on what truly matters. Because the day you treat your energy as priceless is the day the world begins to treat you the same. Rule 4. Kill the echo chamber. Your bubble is more dangerous than you think. Most people don't even realize they're living inside one. They think they're free, independent, rational thinkers, but in reality they're trapped in an echo chamber. It's not just about politics or social debates, it's deeper. It's the circle of friends who nod along with your every complaint instead of challenging you to grow. It's the algorithm feeding you content designed to confirm what you already believe. It's the routine so familiar that you've stopped questioning whether you're actually progressing. or just standing still in increasingly sophisticated ways. This is the danger of the echo chamber. It makes you feel smart while keeping you ignorant. It gives you the illusion of growth while quietly ensuring your stagnation. The ancients understood this trap long before social media existed. Socrates, considered the wisest man in Athens, shocked people not with his answers, but with his humility. He said, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." While everyone else was certain of their brilliance, Socrates was the only one brave enough to admit his ignorance. That humility didn't make him weak. It made him the wisest person in the room. Contrast that with our world today. Everyone wants to be right. Everyone wants confirmation. Few want to be challenged. But the Stoics, like Socrates, knew that comfort is the enemy of growth. If you only surround yourself with agreement, you never evolve. You simply become a more polished version of the person you already were, instead of discovering the person you could become. So how do we break free from the echo chamber? How do we step outside the bubble and engage with ideas that stretch us instead of flatter us? It begins with changing your mental diet. 1. Change what you consume. Take a hard look at what you're feeding your mind. What books are you reading? What podcasts are you listening to? What conversations are you having daily? If they all confirm what you already believe, then you're not learning. You're just reinforcing. And reinforcement without growth is stagnation in disguise. 2. Seek out different voices. This doesn't mean getting into endless arguments with strangers online. That's entertainment, not wisdom. Real growth comes from engaging with people in good faith who see the world differently and can teach you something you didn't know you needed to learn. Find a mentor who challenges your thinking. Read a book from a perspective opposite to yours. Listen to someone who has solved the problems you're still struggling with. 3. Practice intellectual humility. Every time you feel certain, pause and ask, what if I'm wrong? What am I not seeing? This simple act of questioning cracks open the walls of your echo chamber and lets in fresh air. 4. Step into uncomfortable conversations. Growth happens when you risk discomfort. Instead of avoiding the colleague who disagrees with you, invite them to lunch and ask honest questions. Instead of dismissing a worldview you dislike, read a thoughtful book that explains it. You don't have to agree, but you do have to listen. Try this as a practical exercise. Pick one assumption you've never questioned and challenge it this week. Maybe it's about money, relationships, success, or happiness. Ask, where did this belief come from? Is it serving me or trapping me? That one exercise can be the start of an entirely new level of awareness. When you kill the echo chamber, something profound happens. You discover that your ideas can withstand scrutiny. You realize that disagreement doesn't destroy you. It sharpens you. And you learn that real strength isn't found in being surrounded by mirrors, but in standing firm when others see differently. The Stoics weren't afraid of opposing voices. They welcomed them because they knew that truth is not fragile. Truth can stand the test of questioning. And when your thinking has been tested, your decisions become stronger. You stop living in the shallow comfort of always being right and begin living in the deep clarity of always being real. This isn't just about knowledge. It's about resilience. A person who only listens to agreement is brittle. One challenge can shatter them. But a person who is engaged with multiple perspectives is flexible, adaptable, unshakable. They don't collapse under criticism because they've already tested themselves against it. So here's the challenge. Examine your bubble. Identify one source of intellectual comfort you've been clinging to and replace it with something that stretches you. Read a book from a thinker you disagree with. Seek advice from someone who has walked a different path. Question one belief you've always taken for granted. Yes, it will feel uncomfortable. But remember, comfort is the enemy of growth. And you are here not to stay comfortable, but to become unshakable. If you're ready to step outside the bubble, say it now in the comments. I kill the echo chamber. That is the true Stoic way, to stop hiding in the safety of agreement, to embrace the discomfort of growth, and to discover the strength that only comes from seeing the world as it truly is. Rule 5. Watch, don't react. Picture this scene. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Your blood pressure spikes. Your grip on the steering wheel tightens, and before your brain has even processed the event, your horn is blaring, your mouth is moving, and your mood is ruined. Or maybe it's not traffic, it's an email from your boss dripping with passive aggression, or a friend who cancels plans at the last minute, or a stranger online throwing careless words your way. You know this cycle. Something happens, your emotions surge, and before you know it, you've reacted. And later, sometimes minutes, sometimes hours, you realize your reaction didn't help. It only made things worse. We live in a world addicted to reactivity. We react to the news. We react to social media. We react to other people's moods, to the weather, to our own insecurities. Our lives become one endless chain of responses to things we didn't choose. And in that cycle, we lose control of the only thing that ever truly belonged to us, ourselves. The Stoics saw this clearly. Epictetus, who endured slavery and hardship, taught one of the most powerful truths ever written. It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. Think about that. It's not the insult that ruins your day. It's your decision to replay it in your head 100 times. It's not the storm that breaks you. It's your choice to fight against what you cannot control. Events themselves are neutral. It's your interpretation, your reaction, that gives them power. But here's the good news. Between stimulus and reaction there is a space. And in that space lies your freedom. In that pause, you get to choose whether to lash out from your wounds or to respond from your wisdom. Reaction versus response. Reaction is instant, it's emotional, it's raw. It's driven by the need to protect your ego or make the pain stop right now. Reaction doesn't see the bigger picture. Reaction only sees the moment. Response is intentional. It's measured. It's born from clarity, not compulsion. Response pauses to ask, what outcome do I want? Will this move me closer to peace or drag me deeper into chaos? Reaction is a spark that starts a fire. Response is a hand that guides the flame into warmth and light. Reaction drains your energy. Response directs your energy. The Stoic practice: pause, breathe, observe, choose. The next time you feel the surge of anger, frustration, or even excitement, try this 4-step practice. 1. Pause. Don't act immediately. Create a gap between what happened and what you do. 2. Breathe. Take 3 slow, conscious breaths. This interrupts the automatic chain of reaction. 3. Observe. Notice what's happening inside you. Where do you feel it in your body? What thoughts are racing through your mind? Treat your reaction like a scientist observing a phenomenon, with curiosity, not judgment. 4. Choose. From that space of awareness, ask yourself, what response will serve me best? What choice aligns with my values? Then act. This isn't about being passive. It's about reclaiming your agency. Watching instead of reacting doesn't mean ignoring the world. It means engaging with it on your terms, not as a slave to impulse. Think of a mountain. Storms rage around it. Winds tear at it. Rain batters its slopes. But the mountain remains unmoved. It doesn't deny the storm. It doesn't pretend the storm isn't happening. It simply stands, aware of the weather, but not defined by it. That's what watching instead of reacting does for you. It allows you to experience the storms of life without being swept away by them. Other people's chaos no longer becomes your chaos. Their urgency no longer dictates your emergency. Their bad day no longer ruins your good one. Here's the paradox. The more you practice watching, the stronger you become. Most people think strength is about force, raising your voice, clapping back, fighting fire with fire. But true strength lies in restraint, in the ability to hold your ground without being provoked into foolishness. The people who seem unshakable aren't those who never feel anger or pain. They're the ones who feel it fully but refuse to let those feelings control their decisions. They know emotions are signals, not commands. And when you master this, you stop living like a puppet jerked around by every trigger. You become the puppeteer, calm, deliberate, in control of your strings. So here's your challenge. The next time something triggers you, whether it's a rude comment, a frustrating delay, or an unexpected setback, don't react. Watch. Pause. Breathe. Observe. Choose. Train yourself to find that space between the event and your response. Over time, that space will grow. and so will your strength. Because in the end, the quality of your life will not be determined by what happens to you, but by how you choose to respond. If this principle resonates with you, type it in the comments. I choose response over reaction. And stay tuned with us here at True Stoic Way, where warriors like you are learning to master their emotions, reclaim their power, and stand like mountains, aware of the storm, but unmoved. Rule 6. Turn your back on clout. The most dangerous addiction today isn't drugs, it's clout. You don't inject it, you don't inhale it, you refresh it, you scroll for it, you measure it in likes, shares, and comments. And once it hooks you, it's harder to escape than any substance. Because clout doesn't just tempt you with pleasure, it tempts you with identity. Look around. How many people spend more time curating the image of their lives than actually living them? How many entrepreneurs know more about building a personal brand than building a business? How many artists spend hours documenting their creativity online but barely create real work offline? This is the seduction of clout. It offers the feeling of progress without the reality of it. You post your morning workout, and the likes trickle in. You feel fit. You share a motivational quote, and people comment. You feel wise. You announce a new project before you've done the work. You feel accomplished. But here's the brutal truth. Feeling like you're doing something and actually doing it live in two completely different universes. Seneca, the Roman Stoic philosopher, saw this danger long before Instagram existed. He warned, "It is a shameful thing to be weary of inquiry when what we search for is excellent." In other words, it is shameful to stop pursuing real excellence while chasing only the appearance of it. That's what clout does. It shifts your focus from becoming excellent to merely appearing excellent. And once you start chasing appearances, you've already lost. Because your scoreboard no longer belongs to you. It belongs to algorithms, to strangers, to crowds who don't know your values, your mission, or your true definition of success. Chasing clout forces you to make decisions based on optics rather than substance. You choose workouts that look impressive in photos rather than ones that actually serve your health. You take on projects that sound good in a bio rather than ones that build real skills. You share struggles that make you look relatable instead of working through struggles that would actually change your life. Clout convinces you that if something isn't documented, it didn't happen. But the truth is the opposite. The undocumented moments are often the most valuable. The book you read without posting about it still changed your mind. The breakthrough you didn't announce still transformed you. The growth that happened in silence still counts. So how do you turn your back on this addiction? How do you stop living for the crowd and start living for yourself? The Stoics would remind you, build substance first, share second, if at all. 1. Build in silence. Focus on the work, not the applause. Learn the skill, master the craft, do the training, without needing validation along the way. 2. Share from connection, not desperation. It's not wrong to share your journey, but do it to connect, not to beg for approval. Share because you have something meaningful to offer, not because you're desperate for attention. 3. Redefine your scoreboard. Success is not measured by engagement metrics. It's measured by the integrity of your effort, the strength of your character, and the alignment of your actions with your values. When your head hits the pillow at night, you should feel accomplished not because the world applauded, but because you lived true. Examples of real growth. The man who trains in the gym consistently, not because he's filming it, but because discipline is its own reward. The entrepreneur who quietly builds a business, reinvests profits, learns from mistakes, and only talks about it when the work is solid. The student who studies, practices, and gains knowledge, not to post photos of books, but to actually embody wisdom. These are the people who over time become unstoppable. They are more interesting when they're not trying to be interesting. They are more confident when they're not trying to appear confident. They are more successful because they're not performing success, they're living it. Clout is a rigged game. Platforms decide what gets rewarded. Crowds decide what gets celebrated. If you play their game, you hand them the keys to your self-worth. But if you turn your back on clout, you reclaim your scoreboard. You no longer ask, how many people saw this? You ask, Am I better than I was yesterday? The Stoics remind us, excellence is not a show, it's a way of being. And the best transformations often happen in silence, away from the noise, away from the crowd, away from the addiction of appearances. So here's your challenge. Identify one area of your life where you've been chasing clout instead of substance. Maybe it's your fitness, maybe it's your work, maybe it's your relationships. Ask yourself, what would I do differently if no one was watching? What goals would I pursue if I couldn't post about them? What changes would I make if I measured progress only by my own standards? Do that. Build in private. Grow in silence. Let your results speak louder than your posts ever could. If you're ready to build in silence and grow in strength, write it below. I turn my back on clout. That's how we walk the true Stoic way. Choosing substance over show, reality over performance, and inner strength over external applause. Rule 7. Protect your comeback story. Life is already preparing you for a comeback, but only if you protect it. Every challenge you face, every setback you endure, every quiet night when no one is watching, they're all chapters in a story that's still being written. But here's the danger. You cannot write a powerful comeback story if you reveal every step along the way. You cannot surprise the world with your transformation if you've broadcasted every detail to an audience that isn't even invested in your success. This is the paradox of modern living. We've been conditioned to believe that unless we document our journey, it doesn't count. That every goal, every change, every struggle must be shared for validation. But the truth is the opposite. The most powerful comebacks are forged in silence, away from the noise, in the hidden hours where discipline and growth take root. Think about it. The person who suddenly shows up after months with a stronger body, a sharper mind, a calmer spirit. What do people say? Where did this come from? That's the impact of a protected comeback story. The transformation shocks people not because you told them, but because you became it. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote words that pierce straight to the heart. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. He didn't waste his life explaining his plans, defending his choices, or showcasing his progress. He simply lived them. And in doing so, he left behind a legacy of strength that still guides us today. Your comeback story isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's not about showing the world how strong you are. It's about proving something to yourself. That you can remain focused when no one is cheering. That you can keep building even when nobody notices. That you can rise without applause. The practices of a protected comeback. 1. Learn in silence. Not every insight you gain has to be shared. Some lessons are for you alone. Read, study, reflect, and allow wisdom to reshape you in private. When you keep certain lessons to yourself, they sink deeper into your character instead of dissipating into casual conversations. 2. Build discipline in the dark. The late nights when you're working while others sleep, the early mornings when you train while others waste time, these are the hidden bricks of your comeback. They may not look impressive on social media, but they form the unshakable foundation of your future self. 3. Share selectively. This doesn't mean becoming secretive or deceptive. It means being discerning. Share your journey with people invested in your growth, not with crowds looking for entertainment. Discuss your goals with mentors who can help you achieve them, not with acquaintances who will only doubt or distract you. Science has shown that when you talk about your goals, your brain gets a hit of dopamine that makes you feel as though you've already achieved them. The result? Less motivation to actually follow through. That's why so many people announce grand plans but rarely execute them. But when you hold your goals close, when you let the work, not the talk, carry the weight, you preserve your hunger. You stay motivated. You channel your energy into action rather than performance. Remember, the world doesn't need to know your process. It only needs to witness your results. Examples of protected comebacks. The man who quietly loses 50 pounds without documenting every meal, then shows up transformed. The woman who studies a new language in silence for a year, then shocks everyone with her fluency. The worker who builds a side business in private, then suddenly replaces their income and walks away from a job that once trapped them. These stories inspire not because they were narrated step by step, but because the transformation revealed itself all at once, undeniable and unshakable. When you protect your comeback story, you build strength where it matters most, inside. You learn to be comfortable with the gap between who people think you are and who you are becoming. That gap is sacred. That's where the real work happens. So stop seeking applause for every step. Stop trading your transformation for validation. Stop narrating your process to an audience that isn't walking with you. Instead, guard your journey. Work in silence. Grow in silence. Let the results speak when the time is right. Here's the truth. The most powerful comebacks happen when people least expect them. When the world thinks you've stalled, when they assume you've given up, when they're no longer paying attention. That's when you arrive, transformed. Not with noise, not with announcements, but with undeniable presence. Your comeback story is not content. It's your life. Protect it. Build it. Live it. If you're committed to this path, type it now. I am writing my comeback story in silence. Let's build this together here at True Stoic Way, where warriors choose substance over show, growth over performance, and strength over noise. Because the world is noisy, but your comeback story should be quiet until it's ready to roar. We've traveled through 7 rules, each one a stepping stone on the path the Stoics carved thousands of years ago. Rules that cut through the noise of modern life, strip away the illusions of validation, and bring you face to face with your own strength. Let's take a moment to weave them together. You began by learning to starve the noise because without silence you cannot even hear your own voice. You discovered that every time you cut off the endless chatter of opinions, comparisons, and distractions, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Then you moved into Rule 2. Move like nobody's watching, and realized that most of your invisible judges don't exist. You saw the truth, that the harshest critic is not outside, but inside, and that by acting from your authentic center, you give yourself, and others, permission to live freely. Next came Rule 3. Keep your energy expensive. You learned that your daily energy is currency, and you can no longer afford to spend it cheaply on gossip, drama, and obligations that drain instead of build. By guarding your energy, you became the CEO of your own life. In Rule 4, kill the echo chamber, you saw the trap of comfort. You discovered that real growth doesn't come from endless agreement, but from seeking perspectives that challenge you, stretch you, and remind you of Socrates' wisdom. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. Rule 5, watch, don't react, gave you one of the most powerful tools of all, the ability to pause, to find the space between stimulus and response, to recognize that your freedom lies not in what happens to you, but in how you choose to respond, to stand like a mountain, aware of the storm, but unmoved. With Rule 6, turn your back on clout, you expose the most dangerous addiction of our time. You learned the difference between appearing excellent and becoming excellent. You saw that real transformation happens in silence, not in the desperate chase for likes, shares, or applause. And finally, Rule 7, protect your comeback story reminded you that the most powerful transformations happen in private, that your life isn't content and your comeback isn't a performance. It's sacred work, late nights of discipline, early mornings of training, quiet hours of learning. Your comeback is not to prove others wrong, but to prove to yourself that you are always capable of becoming more. When you weave these 7 rules together, something extraordinary happens. You stop living like a puppet, pulled by the strings of others. You stop chasing applause from crowds who aren't watching. You stop scattering your energy on things that leave you empty. Instead, you begin to live with focus, with discipline, with unshakable strength. And here is the deeper truth. When you master these rules, you don't just change how you interact with the world. The world begins to change how it interacts with you. People respect your boundaries because you respect them. They value your time because you value it. They see you as centered and grounded because that's exactly what you've become. But more importantly, you start respecting yourself. You stop waiting for permission. You stop craving validation. You stop hoping someone else will believe in you because you finally believe in yourself. This is what the Stoics understood. The world is noisy, chaotic and hungry for your attention. But your strength grows in silence until it roars. So the question is, what will you do now? Will you let this message fade like background noise, just another piece of content consumed and forgotten? Or will you take action? Will you choose one rule today and put it into practice immediately? Because transformation doesn't begin next week or next month or when you're ready. Transformation begins the moment you decide to start. Here's my challenge to you. Go back through the 7 rules and pick the one that hit you hardest. Was it starving the noise? Moving like nobody's watching? Protecting your comeback story? Type it below in the comments. Which rule hit you the most? This isn't just engagement, it's your declaration. A line drawn in the sand, a commitment to growth. And if you've felt a shift in your perspective, if you've caught even a glimpse of the strength that's been hiding inside you, then don't walk away unchanged. Share this message with someone who needs it. Like it, not for me, but as a commitment to yourself that you're ready for transformation. Most of all, subscribe. Join us at True Stoic Way, where we are building not just a channel, but a community. A brotherhood and sisterhood of warriors who choose growth over noise, substance over show, and inner peace over chaos. Because the world doesn't need more people performing for invisible audiences. The world needs more people who are centered, grounded, and unshakable. And when you live this way, you don't just transform your own life. You become a source of strength for everyone around you. So this is not the end. This is the beginning. The beginning of your transformation. The beginning of your comeback. The beginning of the life you were always capable of living. The world is noisy, but your strength grows in silence until it roars.